Hey everybody, this is Perch. I don't know if you saw it. There's a news announcement joke. I mean, this has been I can't remember what was public and then when it wasn't public and at what position that made. I remember talking about it with him in email for a while, and then I know it was secret then, but now it's not. Anyway, Joe Quesada is launching this shared universe, and shared universe is something where it feels kind of like it's not as overused as a multiverse, but as a concept, I don't know that it does you any favors anymore. I mean, it doesn't hurt you or help you. For a period of time, saying a shared universe, people are like, "Oh, I'm more interested to buy and invest," and it's definitely big for people who are the banks and investors into kind of comic startups and other things. You're like, I have a shared universe, and you get people kind of excited about, oh, that means you can have synergy and crossover. It's like, all right, that goes on a PowerPoint deck, real nice. But anyway, I mean, the challenge is the shared universe, and really it was that universal shared monsterverse or whatever. I think that was the one where people are like, okay, this doesn't mean anything. It's not all going to be the early days of the MCU. But it doesn't hurt you either. I mean, like at this point, as a tool, it's no longer a cheat code. It's more of just an option. And if you have a good writer, good editorial, good organization, then it probably works out for you. But beyond that, it's not going to magically just make your company and everything more successful. But anyway, Jokeside has launched a new shared universe based around the work of Shakespeare. And the idea here is that modern. It's actually, and by the way, this sounds a little. I I'm not heavily interested in this idea, but I'm going to sound way more critical than I feel. But because a lot of it does kind of sound like a pitch deck for you know for for a bunch of kind of investor bros. It is a shared Shakespeare universe providing a modern twist on classic stories, which will reimagine some of Shakespeare's finest work in a with contemporary value. On and on it goes. Okay, so we're getting like prequels to Hamlet and other pieces in comic book form. And again, if you're putting together kind of a pitch for comics, there's a certain logic here because what you can say is, hey, people like literature. A lot of these stories are timeless. Let's reinvent them for today. Let's provide a more modern sensibility on it. There's some movies that have done that successfully. You got that, like, what, that 10 Things I Hate About You, wasn't that was based on Shakespeare, wasn't it? Or yeah, and it wasn't Easy A also roughly based on Shakespeare. I don't know. Anyway, you have older movies. You have had attempts where they do this and it's marginally successful. So it's like, well, let's do it in comic book form, and then also let's provide the twist that all of Shakespeare's work can be intertwined, and you can have a character go from one story to the other that augments and exaggerates. But anyway, that's basically what's going on. So we'll get some comic books with that, and some people put some money in, and then we'll see how that all works. And more power to them. I hope it does work. Why not? Um, but if I'm being realistic, odds are it faces kind of a steep uphill battle. I think if it depends on who you're selling the comics to. If you're selling the comics to kids, then you're likely not going to get the initial interest in Shakespeare's work. There'll be a marketing campaign by that. By the way, this isn't one of those "prove me wrong, bro," or me hoping for failure. Just, I think from a marketing perspective, I think it's got a bit of an uphill climb because it's got to kind of thread the needle between comics and entertainment and works of Shakespeare, and it's kind of a different thing. And so you just got a couple different parts there that are kind of hard to pull together. Maybe they'll do it. But it got me thinking because I was having a conversation with a writer, and he was saying, how can you make money in just plain old superheroes anymore? It feels like a lot of the people I talk to, when I talk to kind of other friends of mine who are doing stuff in comics, there's this kind of eternal question of what can we do that is new? What can we do to kind of reinvent comics you know to basically provide something nobody has seen before? And I made the comment of like, well, invention is a thing, and if you get the right, you should strive for new and innovative for sure. But at the same time, there's also perfect the now, which, if you're thinking about commercial success, perfect the now tends to do better, or at least on average, be a lot more successful than invent the new. And I said, you've got cars out there, and you can certainly invent a five-wheeled car. You can do that, but why? Like, does the world need a five-wheeled car? Is that something people have been clamoring for? Is that something that's really going to move the needle? You can easily produce something, new and innovative, but what's going to be more successful? Providing, going in the direction of, like, say, a Tesla, where you have and don't let's just not get started with whether you love or hate Elon Musk. That's not what this video is about. But you have Tesla, and you have a more modern, shaped and designed car, and you have a tech forward interior, and it's electric. And so you've got a bunch of parts of just a four-wheeled car where it's doing newer things in it, but it's, at the end of the day, it's a car. A car as we all know it. It's just advanced, rather than more traditional radio. It's got a, more technology that feels more like your iPad than like the cars you've been driving. He could have, yeah, Elon, or the people involved there could have very easily said, it's really going to work. Let's get three-wheeled cars, or five. Let's have a set of three-wheeled and five-wheeled cars, and let's see how that goes. Let's put that together. It's a little bit one of the reasons why I think the Tesla truck is less successful than the Tesla car. The Tesla car looks more like a car, just tech forward, more to it. The Tesla truck has a radically different shape. It's doing different things. It's still, at the end of the day, a truck, but it's gone further away from the kind of mental image of a car, and it's less successful as a result. Still people are buying it, but that's my point. So with comics, you look at the superhero world, and kind of the point I make is, all right, so once upon a time, you had kind of 70s, 80s, 90s, and you had the newsstand, and you had really popular characters. And the characters are so popular, they're still being used today. When you look at movies that are coming out, you look at, Thunderbolts that's coming out, Fantastic Four, Superman. I mean, take Superman, for example. And what is it a lot of people have said about it? It's like, oh, it looks like a classic superhero movie. It looks like paying homage to the comics. It looks like a lot of classic elements. You hear those comments. And what that tells you a little bit is that, you're taking things that were popularized and worked well in the 60s and 70s, and it's 2025, and you're putting out a movie based on those things that are 50 years old. And you don't hear people say, like, man, I'd love to do a movie about Superman, but it just, I don't know. That character's been out for decades, and there's just no way that will ever work, because, the kids are never going to accept something from back then. They're just never going to do it. No, they're taking something that is classic. They're largely keeping the formula the same, and they're modernizing a bit, kind of like Tesla. You don't see them going, what we need to do is completely debunk the superhero movie and change it entirely. And then, like, we're going to have, like, just Superman, but he's not going to fight any crime. He's just going to have lunch. And it's really going to be about his feelings of being a illegal alien, and how he feels about that. And we're gonna get into a lot of social topics, and then, in his planet, does he really have gender anymore? So we're gonna explore gender identity themes. Like, you don't, that's not what they're leading with. Now, some of the people on YouTube are like, yeah, yeah, but I'll bet when I watch the movie, they're gonna go into a whole "what's Superman's pronouns" bit in the middle of the movie. Yeah, maybe. I doubt it. They might do that, but do you see that in the trailers? When these trailers come out for Fantastic Four, and for all the bitching about female Silver Surfer, and yes, it is clearly an alternate reality Silver Surfer, and that means if they want to have the Silver Surfer in the 616, they can have the dude Silver Surfer. I mean, why not? But anyway, if you look at these trailers, do you notice anything? It's like classical elements. They're not billing. I mean, actually, if Fantastic Four does a little bit, they have dinner, like, together. They're eating, but they're doing so in we're a family. But a lot of the scenes are them fighting things, throwing up shields. Galactus comes down, starts stomping around Manhattan. You have action, because people know that in the trailer you got to hook people with scenes that are going to be, the kind of classic scenes of the movie. So they're doing all that. So why is it then that in comics we seem to have this insecurity of people struggling, like, well, we can't just put out a classic superhero book. Like, that's been done. We can't do it. We're gonna have to really reinvent the whole thing. And I think part of it is that the comic industry has fallen in love with people like Grant Morrison, for example, like Warren Ellis, used to. But you have this, like, I'm going to reinvent comics, and you had Grant say a lot of things like, I'm going to give you a very different kind of comic. That was Grant's narrative. By the way, some people every now and then people still write in going, "You're using the wrong pronouns for Grant." If you are behind the times and have not read up on how Grant feels about his pronouns, don't bitch to me that I'm saying he. Okay, like I'm respecting the man's wishes. Okay, literally. Yes, yes, I am. Go look it up. Go your old news. Anyway, um, but but uh, but even though Grant would say things like "I'm reinventing superheroes," I have a different twist on it. I mean, that was his persona. That was the thing he was giving off. If you look at the comics that are created, yes, he did more out there ideas, but he also did a lot of classic superhero things, just very, very classic super things. He was a lot more like the idea of a Tesla that is taking a standard thing and kind of modernizing and changing it a little ways, but he kept the core. And I think when you think about what's going to make superhero comics successful or Marvel or DC or whatever it happens to be, the name of the game is still superhero books. And you don't need to struggle and search and try and find some new unlock for comics. You just have to do the classic thing well. And yeah, modernize bits of it, but do it well. And I see people just flailing around with and it's maybe I hear more of this than a lot of you, but I go and I get like, we can't have superheroes just fighting villains anymore. People are tired of that. Like bullshit, no, they're not. They're not tired of that at all. Look, your big brother there, the MCU is putting out, with the hopes of getting billion-dollar, paydays with heroes fighting villains. That's what they're doing. Why isn't in comics you're like, "Ah, can't do that anymore." Like, it's just absurd. What do people hate? Long scenes of the heroes or the villains doing absolutely nothing. Long talking dialogues. Look, I know you enjoyed Robert Downey Jr. quipping his way through the Avengers, but we don't need 5 pages of that in a comic. Similarly, we we don't need the heroes. We don't need the artists who are so overworked and underpaid that they're just taking panels and copy and pasting over and over and over and over and over, like that Amazing Spider-Man #1 reboot where you've got the same Peter Parker image copy. I mean, it's just lazy. But it's not fun. And yes, you can go online. You can probably find some comic journalists and other people will tell you like, "Oh, it was really exciting that we defied the superhero norms and we set things on their head and we defied expectations and we had a comic where there was very little superhero fighting and instead a lot of scenes of Peter Parker's childhood." Nope, it won't do well. I mean, I get you could find journalists who'll tell you anything, mostly because they want free comics. They won't have to pay for your overpriced shit, but you need classic core superhero books, and so the struggle to reinvent the space is the wrong answer. The right answer is perfect the space. Don't reinvent it, perfect it. Keep keep pushing at what made it classic. And again, I'm speaking to the comic book creators and audience here. Y- The, you're, the movies are not working to reinvent things. They have their own flaws with the humor that they use sometimes and kind of the lack of stakes and other things, but they are closer to classic and there's a lot more at stake for them. We're entering a period where 10 years from now, the movies are going to be the movies are going to be drawing from stuff that happened back in the 60s and 70s. They're not going to be drawing from things that happened in the last 10, 15 years because it's like nobody wants a movie of some of this. Anyway, there you go. See what you think. Perfect. Don't reinvent. At least not all the time. Thanks for listening.